Where's Creed? Creed?
Here.
Quality assurance. Your job. I really think you screwed the pooch on this one, Creed. Because of you, the entire company is in jeopardy.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and here on the channel, we've been talking a lot about the issues in the entertainment industry, specifically with the movie theater industry and Disney. Today, we're going to do a big update on Disney and all their financial issues, which are really mounting right now. And here to talk with me about this today is my good friend Perch. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Good to talk to you.
So things are looking worse by the day for Disney. Of course, their parks are closed, their cruise lines are docked, movie theaters are essentially off limits right now. Those three entities attributed to half of their $21 billion in revenue for the most recent quarterly filings.
Right.
And their media networks are receiving lower ad rates now. ESPN has no new sports to air or talk about right now. They're airing horse tournaments, esports, old sporting events, WrestleMania. They are in for a world of hurt in the near and even long-term future, which we're going to talk a little bit about later.
They are. Disney, I mean, you could look at Disney as a business, and a lot of investors and shareholders did, as being really smart about diversifying their business. And they did. They were in physical products like their theme parks. They are in travel with their cruise lines. They're in entertainment. They're in entertainment production and distribution with movies and their networks and everything else. And anyone would tell you, hey, that's really smart. You've got bets in all different sections. This is going to be perfect for you as a company. Unless there is a situation we're having right now, which is hitting them on all fronts, around travel, around visiting, around the ability to produce. So unfortunately, their shell that they had constructed for themselves of being able to weather almost any crisis was not effective against the current one, which to be fair, lots of people are getting better, not just Disney, but this is going to hit them very, very hard because it hits all their businesses simultaneously.
Now, there has been one very bright spot, that being Disney Plus. They have exceeded all expectations. They have already hit 50 million subscribers worldwide. But with those 50 million subscribers, they're only expected to generate $1 billion in quarterly revenue. And Disney Plus and Hulu were already earmarked for yearly losses totaling in the billions. So they're still going to lose money on it, in total. And it's certainly not going to keep them afloat while they're losing money every day on their parks. I believe right now it's believed that they're losing between $30 and $38 million daily. So that's like around $1 billion a month. And that has resulted in their stocks being down 30%, a little bit higher than that. And Netflix, just a streaming service, actually had a higher market cap than Disney.
Yeah, I mean, it is a crazy time. I think, like you mentioned with the streaming service, the Disney Plus is a long-term bet for them. It's critical to their business. Like we were talking before, Disney Plus is another arm in this overall business picture they have, and so it's going to be very, very helpful. It's going to be important for them years from now. It's the right bet to start now. It's not the thing that can save the company or keep it afloat. Of course, it's a brand new entity, and it's a long-term bet for the company. It is Disney finds himself, like I said, in a very strange position where they are losing money. Now, the loss numbers you're hearing is a little bit of opportunity loss versus physical loss. So there's that to contend with. If it was a true revenue loss of actual costs going out as opposed to full lost revenue, I think they'd be in much more severe trouble. But still, none of this is good. And with Disney, I think maybe the worst picture is all of these bets will take a lot of startup time to get moving again. People are not all going to go to the parks en masse, even though you see pictures of lots of people flooding to the beaches when they open. Not everybody's going to flood to the parks. Not everybody's going to have the money to flood to the parks. Disney had successfully ratcheted up their prices for a lot of their different properties that now, it doesn't fit the economy anymore. So Disney is facing a situation where they may have to roll back some prices, where they may have to reset some of their business expectations because their population, their market just simply doesn't have the money to do it anymore.
I do stand behind my assessment that they have rolled out Disney Plus not well, because there's almost no original content outside of The Mandalorian. Of course, they are rolling out, I believe it's an 8-part docu-series about the Mandalorian and the making of it. But other than that, it's just reruns of content that they already had available. And I think they're going to really, in the long run, they're going to wish that they had already had some new content generated up for people to watch and consume and to want to stay, Disney Plus subscribers after this all goes away. But they have taken some cost-cutting measures. Of course, the big one being, well, not the big one, but the one people are most familiar with, Bob Iger. His $5 million salary is now off the books. He's working for free right now. Along with that, all the executive salaries have been slashed in half. The new CEO, Chapek, I believe his salary went from $2.5 million to $1.25 million right now. I guess there was some consternation. They weren't really happy about that. But along with that, they have done 100,000 layoffs, mostly in the parks division, but certainly the marketing department and have been sent home. And even some Marvel Studios employees have been affected. And that's supposed to save them roughly $500 million monthly. Additionally to that, they secured a new $5 billion in credit to go along with the $5 billion that they already secured last month, along with another $3 billion. So they now have access to $13 billion in new credit since the crisis began. And then also last month, they raised $6 billion in a debt offering, an additional $1.3 billion in a Canadian debt offering. So the good news is, despite all their losses and all the issues that they're suffering through, they have been able to accumulate $20 billion in new credit available to them, credit and debt, to get them through these times.
And they're going to need it. I mean, the reality is, I think Disney will have other debt offerings. They will be raising more money. It's undoubtedly. I think this is the, protect current assets from attack and to basically weather this initial storm. There's going to be a whole other batch of money that's going to be needed to start the business back up again. Again, you go back and you look at their different offerings. And you, by the way, your point earlier about Disney Plus and the streaming service, you're absolutely right. I think Disney Plus was launched early because they felt they had to. I mean, and when I say early, I say within the organization. They would have liked to have more time to load up more content. Absolutely. They felt like they were losing the race and in danger. And I think Apple pushed them to move a little faster than they wanted. I believe that they had a plan in place. I think it was public that they were going to catch up on content, that they're going to work really aggressively to get new shows out. And 2020 would be a bit of a soft launch. In 2021, they'd really roll with a lot of new content. Unfortunately, now they can't film that content and they can't produce it. So 2021 is looking like it's going to be soft as well. And that does prolong the pain of that service. But I mean, in general, I mean, when you look at Disney, you look at the money they've raised, you look at what they've got going on within the group. I mean, the cruise line is going to take a long time to get going again, both to convince guests that they need to get back on the ship. It's also going to be tough to convince countries that they want these ships coming in. And there's going to be an uncertainty. If there's a hot spot or a flare up on the ship, will be able to dock? Will countries let them come in? That's going to be a massive concern for that business line. Within the parks, you're going to have rolling concerns about, as we mentioned before, economics of going to Disney is expensive, staying at the park is expensive, eating there and buying the merchandise. If the guests do 10-20% less in their visit to Disney, that's a catastrophic impact to their revenue, and it's undoubtable that will happen because people will just have less money. The only kind of maybe bright point for them when things are able to open up again and when a plan comes out, and it's one of the reasons why you see people like Vince McMahon pushing forward with the WWE running in empty arenas and that kind of thing, is sports is something where if you could figure out a safe, good way to do it, the broadcasting rights, the ability to put that stuff out and distribute it is going to be very, very strong, and people are going to want to sit home and watch that. So I do expect advertising revenue to bounce back. I expect that viewership on those kinds of things to bounce back relatively quickly as soon as they can start running in a safe way. The reality is that money far exceeds what could be made in a stadium in a lot of cases. But otherwise, they're going to have a very protracted startup experience.
Yeah, so their long-term outlook is actually, it does not look good. So right now, the rumor is Disney don't believe their parks are going to open again until 2021. Now, just think about this as a point of reference. When 9/11 happened, it took approximately 2 years to see attendance fully recover at Disneyland and Disney World. And that was one event. There are likely to be flare-ups of this. maybe even later in the year, and even in 2021. So this could be in the mind and the psyche of consumers much longer than 9/11. It could even take longer than the 2 years it took for people to fully be comfortable going back to the Disney park, in the Disney resorts.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. My prediction here is you're talking about kind of two. There's two different factors to consider, and one is within the country. At what point is the population going to decide for themselves? And lots of people have been talking about it, but as a group population, are going to decide that the risks of the virus and all the rest of these things are less than impacting your daily life. And people are going to, we're kind of seeing it now. They're just going to want to get back to work. They're going to want to get out and see, and they're going to take those risks and they're going to digest those risks. I think you're seeing a lot of people say, the economy is more important than the virus, but they haven't necessarily digested the fact of, but that may mean you will die. I mean, there's that extra piece that people really have to get comfortable with. And I think once they do that, you will see people kind of get back to the parks because there's been, disease concerns before, not like this, not as communicated like this, but you will see that happen. So I think you will see people start to get back to the park. I think Florida has a better, smarter chance of getting reopened than California in a timely manner based on kind of the park and what it is. Disney as a company is probably very equipped. It as a positive to creating social distancing, changing aspects of the park to make it safe for people or to, in theory, lessen the spread. Disney is adept at doing things like that, and they will. But all of these things are just operational headaches. And to your earlier point, if there's one hiccup, it's going to take, say, by rough rule of math, it's going to take 5 to 10 days to recover from that. Well, we've had now multiple months of things being out, and it's going to take an equal amount of time to recover and to put these contingencies in place and get people familiar and comfortable with them and not kind of regress into other problems. There's a lot of sociological changes that have to take place in all this. Disney, I believe that Disney Park, at least Florida, will be open this year. I think it will be open by summer. I think California is much more of a question mark. And I think looking to regions like, we'll put it this way, if Shanghai Disney opens in the near term, it's going to put immense pressure to get the other parks open. And so I think you'll see this domino effect. And we're just waiting for what that first domino to fall is going to be and what the consequences of that will be. But Disney none of this is good. And they're definitely, Disney's not going to go out of business. They're not going to be sold to Staples or some insane kind of theory like somebody was saying. Disney will return and Disney will be here as a business, but it's definitely going to look like a much different business.
Yeah, and depending on the length that it takes them to come back online here in the U.S., 100,000 people have been laid off. There's a good chance a lot of them have other jobs by then. They moved on with their life. Maybe even they move physically. Maybe they go back home or something like that. Of course, we do know that there are shops in buildings that have opened up around the Shanghai Disney park, but of course the park itself is not open yet. Another place that they've really been hit hard, obviously, is theatrical releases. It looks like AMC Theaters is going to have to file a Chapter 11 bankruptcy just to survive. And there's a good chance a large number of theaters nationwide, in North America, actually never reopen because of this. There's going to be less theaters to put their movies out in. Plus, all their movie productions have been on hold, as well as their Disney Plus productions. They're going to have to start all that back up. And, there are going to be people that have moved on to other jobs. They're going to have to get all these productions started back up. That's more money out of pocket to get these things rolling again. There's no guarantee that there's going to get a lot of return on investment for movies in 2020 either.
No, there's not. And I think, you think back to something Todd McFarlane said about comics. That is, if you give people a break, if you cut the habit, a lot of them won't come back, or they'll be different when they do come back. They won't be as committed. Well, Disney has very, very successfully built up a, for lack of a better word, an addiction to the MCU and to some of their core films where people just have to see them all. It's one of Disney's big strengths as a brand is that they create a collector mentality. I've got to get all the pins. I've got to get all the shirts. I got to ride all the rides, etc. Once you break that habit, so you look at the MCU and those movies, progressively, they start making more and more and more money. And people had the feeling of, I just can't miss a Marvel movie. are they going to be able to get all of that audience back and keep them hooked? Yes, there will be a demand to say, it's been so long, I can't wait to see Black Widow. I've got to get in on that. But the addiction has been broken, which means that cycle has to start up again for the moviegoers, that they have to encourage, they have to teach them, hey, you got to see every movie. And I think that's potentially very dangerous for their movie division. In addition to just getting things started up, they've got to convince the audience that they need to come to every film. They've got to watch them all. They've got to have that commitment, which, for Marvel took 10 plus years to really create. And that is going away. Can they get it back? Absolutely, they can get it back. But once you get out of practice or something, the momentum to keep going does shrink.
The outlook for Disney, in the near term is not good. They're going into a lot more debt. Of course, they are not really making any money right now. The outlook long term, much more uncertain. We don't know when these parks are going to come back online. We don't know how many theaters are going to be available when the economy opens back up. We don't know how many people are even going to want to go into a theater with their family, with strangers right now. So these effects could be 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. We just don't know, but it's definitely going to affect Disney in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I think they're in for a rough 5 to 10 years. And when I say rough, they're going to have to look at their pricing. They're going to have to look at their projections. They're going to have to look at the people that they have. I mean, there's just a number of different elements that are going to reset parts of their business. And Bob Iger is helping steer them through this. But, for Chapwick and the other executives that come in, it's going to be a resetting era for Disney, which is definitely not what they wanted. They were in a power position growth era, and that's been reset for them. So it's going to impact their shares. It's going to impact their employees, their executives, what they do, how quickly they move. They had made some commitments around technology for their parks and for their business that were not completed yet, that now aren't going to be able to be completed because the capital is not going to be there to fully do that transformation. So there's a lot that's in Disney's future that's going to be very, very unpleasant. And I believe they will weather through it. It's going to take a long time, and it leaves them open to have other people compete.
Perch, I want to say thank you very much. It was a very informative, great discussion, and we'll definitely talk about this subject again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Good talking with you.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.